Let me wake you up with two questions. Okay. First is for gentlemen, and the second is for ladies. Okay. The first question for gentlemen. Please don't laugh. How a husband may kill his wife without committing a crime. And the second question for ladies, how a lady would drive her husband through using a number. This number is a 3-digit number. What is that number? So, what do you think? For the gentlemen or for the ladies? The ladies, if they use a number, they can drive their husbands crazy. What is this number? It's a 3-digit number. Huh? For real? No, I'm just joking. Okay. So, what about gentlemen? What is the thing that would drive any wife crazy? Actually, can kill her slowly but surely. Yes. Neglecting others. Being cold. Okay. Yes. Not clean the dishes. Yes.
Don't give her the priority.
Don't give her the priority. Okay. Don't listen to her? Okay. Huh? Criticizing her. Okay. Well, this all may work, but I think the closest answer may be not listening to her. I would rather say, stop talking to her, stop listening to her. Really. You know, wives cannot live and function unless they talk and they are listened to. Believe it or not. I'm actually bringing you, most of my presentation today is not from a book. It's of course the Bible, but mainly it's from practice, from my clinical work. So what I'm going to tell you today is real thing. You know, ignoring your wife's needs to talk and to be listened to can drive her crazy. Okay, but don't try it, please. Okay, for ladies, what is the number? 100. Anybody? Huh? 911. Well, we'll come to 911 later on. Anything else? Okay. The number is 111. It's a secret number. Do you know what is 111? Anybody knows what's 111? 111 is the number that any wife would show here when she frowns. Okay? When she frowns for a long time, okay, or in Dr. Nabil's language, Nakadeya, okay, then there is a number that will appear here. It's 111. And that would drive her husband crazy. Shut him off. Okay, let's start. Now, our objectives today is to see how each spouse in marriage has God-given rights. We're talking about use. And the second is to understand how to help ourselves stay secure as each spouse commits oneself to his or her duties. Actually, we are talking about rights and duties in marriage. And if we don't understand our rights, and if we don't commit to our duties in marriage, then our marriages shall definitely suffer. So one of our most critical verses today is about love in marriage and the marriage success or failure. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 3. Let the husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. And can you believe the wisdom of the Holy Spirit allowed St. Paul, or asked St. Paul to write this verse in this consequence? Can you see who is first here, the wife or the husband? The due is who? To who? But yeah, I mean, let the husband render to his wife. So it starts with the husband to pay his wife her dues. Her dues. Due affection. Why? Why is written? Actually, the title of the presentation started with his dues, her dues. But actually it should have been the opposite. Her dues, his dues. You know why? Why it started with the wife here? Very important. Yes. Yes. A woman thrives when she receives love and affection. And the husband is the one who should give love first, because we are following the example of Jesus Christ. We love him. Can you remember that verse in 1 John? We love him first because we love him because he loves us first. And Jesus, I mean, a husband is the symbol of Jesus. It's just like the man, the head. The second verse, I mean, this is the picture that I love. The two shall become one flesh. So then they shall no longer two but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined, let together, let not man separate. Always remember that. Always remember this image. We are no more two but one. Because that's all about love in marriage, which is very special love. We can't become one body or one flesh with anybody else except with my spouse. The dues says here in different translations. Unfortunately, the screen is a little short here. Let the husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. And another translation, the husband should give to his wife her conjugal or marital rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Okay? So we have different translations. The last one is the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. I mean, which translation is right? They are all right. It's the same meaning. When we talk about affection, we're talking about marital rights, we're talking about marital duty, we talk about sexual needs. It's all included in that verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3. But there is another one here coming after that. The verse number 4, 7, 4. It's like a completion of that verse. Listen to that. It says what? The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. So, he started this time with who? The husband or the wife? Husband. Okay? It's started with the wife's duty to fulfill her husband, his needs, especially the physical needs, over her body. Does not. The wife does not. Why? Because as much as the wife needs affection, love, husbands need sexual intercourse and intimacy. That's how God created me, how God created you. And we all need to submit to God's will in this case. You know, but doesn't mean that a wife doesn't have sexual needs. Of course she does. Doesn't mean that husbands don't have emotional and needs for affection and love. Of course they do. So we need to continue here and see what we expect after marrying. What do we expect? 3 things. First, needs are fulfilled. That's what we expect. Otherwise, why should we get married? Of course, I mean, I know that you heard those questions earlier today from Abuna David and from Dr. Irene. I was listening to their presentation through Logos channel. Wonderful. And some of my presentation may overlap with theirs, but I mean, that's fine. It's all serving the same theme. Our needs fulfilled. A better quality of life, of course. Life's quality should be much better after we get married. Definitely. Never regret that you got married, please. If this hits your mind, please talk to somebody about that. And the third one, successful achievement of life's mission. 2 are better than what? And then 1. 2 are better than 1. So, when we are helping each other, our mission should be achieved successfully. Better quality needs fulfilled. So, let me come to this slide that will talk about areas of spousal interactions. First, just please try to think of each one of these areas. Do they apply to your life or not? When we interact in marriage, our interaction would include the following: love and affection. Number 2, intimacy and sexuality. Number 3, communication, the big C word. Number 4, validation and affirmation. That's the emotional diet that we live through, encouraging each other. Number 5, the boundaries. Heard Dr. Irene mention boundaries today, because it's very important to live with respect to each other. And number 6 is dealing with all other needs. Okay? Do you agree with me about that? These are the 6 areas of interactions between me and my wife, me and my spouse. When expectations are unmet, now, we said we expect our needs to be met in marriage. If my expectations are not met, what happens to me? What happens to me? First thing, disappointment. Second, frustration. And third, anger. This is like the anger cycle. Disappointment, frustration, and anger. And that's how conflicts that Abuna David spoke about earlier today start to happen, to erupt, to brew, you know. So, we need to talk a little bit about anger and resentment. How do we express in marriage our anger when we are mad at each other? Just remember, try to take each point and try to remember one or the other situation when you were mad at your spouse and you started to show direct hostility and aggressiveness. Loud voice, harsh words, sometimes violence, abuse, things like that. That's hostility and aggressiveness. That's not right. What about the second channel? Passive aggressiveness and resistance. What's passive aggressiveness and resistance? Mean that, like, I can't show my anger, but I keep it within, boiling inside, but still try just to express it one way. So one way to show my passiveness is to non-comply. Don't comply. Silent resistance. Number two, stubbornness. You become so stubborn and obstinate, you know, and that happens sometimes. Why I'm saying that? Because this is very common. Purposeful or selective forgetfulness. Like Dr. Nabil described that, what's called, Dr. Nabil, we say the filtering. Filtering. When you filter, you know, some information you just forgot, and purposefully, you know. But when you do that, this, and the number 3 is self-blame or something. But let me go back to the first 3. Silent non-compliance, stubbornness, and forgetfulness. Any examples here? He would tell you, for example, you are a wife, and he's coming and say, please don't forget to pay to send the checks, put it in the mail, something like that. And because you are mad at him, and you can't say no to him, but you can just ignore. Don't comply. And when he comes back from work, did you send your check? No, I forgot. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it happens through more sensitive areas, like saying, no, I'm not going to sleep with you tonight. Why? I'm tired. I have my period. I have my PMS. Anything. Or some other ways, just, you know, he likes molokhaya, and he comes back from work very hungry and smells the molokhaya, and he sits to eat, and then molokhaya is having double dose of salt. Okay. It smells very good, and he's very hungry, but can't eat it. And it's just, how did you put that much salt in the molokhaya? I don't know. But inside her, she is mad, she is angry, but she cannot express her anger. That's the way she shows her anger to him. Yeah, raising his blood pressure. The third way to express our anger, and this is very common, you keep blaming yourself. Self-blame. You are always wrong. Whatever the other may do or may not do, but still you blame yourself. And it sounds good, like you are a very humble person, you are a very Christian spouse. You don't want just to tolerate your spouse's abuse and neglect and ignoring and all that stuff. So you keep saying, I am... Something happened. Here. Yeah. You keep blaming yourself and say, it's because of me. And you sound like this is like a Christian behavior. Say, just keep blaming yourself. You never judge your spouse. But the question is, for how long you keep taking that on you? How long? Your spouse is ignoring your needs. Your spouse doesn't, talk to you or listen to you or anything like that. And you are taking that over and over and over. How long? That's why many marriages fail 15 and 20 years later. And when I sit with the spouses, or one of them at least, they tell me something like the common denominator of all these problems. You know what? That's the case. That has been the case since our honeymoon. And so my question, why did you stay like that? Why did you wait that long? And they answer and say, I don't know. I thought that he or she may change over the time. So I kept blaming myself, suppressing my feeling, and just don't talk about it. Swallow it. Live with it. Carry your cross. Isn't that what we hear sometimes? You have a cross at home. Just to carry the cross, live. Because of your kids. Because. Doesn't always work. Not everybody can do that. Or not everybody can do that forever. So, there's some way to express your frustration at one point by seeking help. The last one is the most dangerous. Depression and acting out. And you know what's meant by depression? When you start to feel depressed, you become dysfunctional. And when you act out, you can do anything crazy. That's how cheating happens. That's how affairs start. Because we started to become to feel like I'm not able to take that anymore. But that's not an excuse. That's why you need to seek the right thing. Acting out marital conflicts. I'm sure Abuna spoke about that earlier today. And just there is a question here. How would you deal with an unmet need or a spousal conflict? You know, you resolve serious problems or conflicts through the following. This is like a questionnaire. And I give the questionnaire when I do the premarital education. I ask them this one, if the question is this question. You will resolve serious problems or conflicts with your spouse through the following. We have 10 choices. Try to focus. Direct communication between you and your spouse. Who agrees about that and who doesn't agree? Agree? Raise your hand. All of us. Okay? The best thing. Number 2, avoiding to address the problem until time may resolve it. Anybody agrees about that? Do you think time can resolve conflicts? No. Unfortunately not. All our hard feelings will stay here, inside. They won't be resolved on their own. Okay? Number 3, asking a priest or the bishop to intervene. الحقني يا أبونا. Okay? That can be helpful. Yeah, sometimes helpful, of course. Sometimes. Okay? What about number 4? Asking your spouse's parents to convince him or her to listen to you. No, you know better. Okay. Number 5, asking a mediator like a friend for help. Dangerous. Dangerous. Please let me know about the timing. Number 6, taking a break away from your spouse by staying with your own parents or relatives. Huh? Wrong? Okay. Cheating on your spouse. Okay. Seeing a lawyer. Well, you're laughing. Sometimes it happens. They come and say, I cheated because she or he has done this or that. You know? Seeing a lawyer for a legal advice. Getting in. Calling 911. Somebody mentioned 911. Especially when your spouse resorts to violence. Number 10, filing for legal separation or divorce. Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, I mean, we come to only one thing mainly, which is direct communication. If we need help, then we have to look for legitimate help. Legal advice, not legal advice, sorry, counseling advice, pastoral advice from a pastor, from a abuna, somebody like that. So back to the rights and the duties. Two statements here. The balance between rights and duties is what may determine the success or failure of human, social, and societal relationships in general. Now this is a general statement. The balance between rights and duties just determine the success or failure of any social relationship. In marriage, this balance may determine the marriage's functionality as well as its fate, and consequently the entire family system's health. Now we are talking about something new here called family system. Because a family is a system, you know. System, it has some interaction, dynamics, things like that. So this balance would determine the marriage's functionality. My question to you, do you think your marriage is functional or dysfunctional? Please be honest. Answer to yourself. Do you feel your marriage is working well or not? Because if it's not, you need to stop here right now and think, how can I find solutions? Understanding due affection, because due affection, basically people understand that it's love, but actually affection is something not that includes love plus other love acts or acts of love. Like what? Question 1. Do you understand and are you aware of all your spouse's needs for love, affection, sexual fulfillment? Sometimes I receive a phone call from people that I never saw, I would never see. But the complaint comes like that. My husband doesn't talk to me, doesn't want to sleep with me, doesn't touch me, and I feel so depressed and sad. I spend nights just crying. Sometimes it comes from the husband. My wife assumes that I don't have any physical or sexual needs because she doesn't care. She thinks that I can take care of myself somehow. Okay. For example, question 2. Are you ready to meet honestly meet all these needs to the best of your ability? There is a decision now. So first one is diagnostic. You are diagnosing your marriage. You understand? And by the way, there is a critical word here called awareness. Please repeat it with me. Awareness. Again, awareness. What's meant by awareness? Awareness means that I am sensitive to my spouse's needs. Needs for affection, needs for love, needs for sex, needs for security, needs for money, needs. If I'm not aware of that, there's something wrong with me. Period. And are you ready to meet honestly these needs? Failure to pay the dues. Serious business here. Can you read the red letters? These are the dynamics of affairs. Extramarital affairs. How do they happen? And when? Okay. Affection and desire. Two elements here. Talk first about the affection element, the factors. Affection factors include the following: the spouse's own background experience. What do I mean by that? One or the other of us may not be able to give because of my background and my experience. I was raised not to be a real good husband. I was raised not to become a real good wife. My background, my experience was full of trash. And I never worked on myself to allow the Holy Spirit to bring the repair, to make corrections in my life. How did your marriage begin? That's another thing. Because if you still have good memories about your marriage, how did it begin? How did it start? Your dating, time of dating, your honeymoons, first year, second year, it's very helpful. Okay. If not, then you need to start immediately to work on your marriage. You know why? Because years and years down the road, you will need to remember those times and those years when your marriage becomes as old as 30 and 40 and 50. You are not immune. You are not immune when you reach age 65, as Dr. Nabil said, or 70 or 70. Nobody's immune. But very important, if your marriage didn't start well, you need to start it well right away. How have you been communicating? Of course, communication is the most major thing in marriage. Most major, element in marital life. Communication. How do you overcome rust and boredom? Yes. Have been married now for 5 years? What did you do to renew your vows? Overcome boredom. Okay? How did you do to remove rust? How do you resolve your conflicts? Another question. How do you do any joint spiritual activities? Very important. Remember, I told you that before once and twice and 3 times. When you have Christ in your master bedroom, the devil can hardly get into that room. If you pray together, if you read your Bible together, that's how you secure your marriage against all temptation, all evil. Then, very critical question. Number 7. How is your family system functioning? Okay, let me start to elaborate a little about family system. But after we finish number 2, desire. How our desire to become intimate get affected? We have 7 points here. Gender and age difference. Always remember, gentlemen, your wives are not like you. They are different. Ladies, your husbands are not like you. They are different. It's very important to understand and to know and be aware of those differences, gender differences. Not only the physical difference or the anatomical differences, but much more importantly, the mental, the emotional, spiritual, etc., etc. These are very important differences. Differences also in physiology. Wives, they have this menstrual cycle that changes their mood over the month, over the period. 30 days or 28 days. Gentlemen, I mean, they have swinging hormones all the time, not the male hormone, but it's the adrenaline. Goes up and down and up and down, change their mood sometimes. We need that. Personal background. Any one of us, and I mentioned that before, who was exposed at one point to abuse, especially sexual abuse in their childhood, they always need to consider some sort of counseling or even therapy. You know why? Because exposure to abuse would leave us with scars, trauma that stay here in our minds forever. Scars never disappear. So we need to address these points with somebody professional, you know, because sometimes these scars would affect my marital life, especially our sexual relationship. Mental health. Are you depressed or not? Yes, it's very important to check on my mood, see, am I depressed or not? A couple days ago, a lady called me from somewhere in North America and saying, أنا خلاص هتجنن. I'm about. She's a very good Christian lady, but her husband has been depressed for a long time, ignoring her needs, and she is like late 30s or early 40s, and she goes to work and she finds people admiring her, talking to her well, and you know, and she goes home and her husband is like a dead body. So she don't know what to do. She doesn't know. She's screaming for help. Depression. I ask her, please confront him. You need to tell him like that. Make it black and white. Either you go to have treatment or something would happen to our marriage. And it works. It's being working now. Religious beliefs and attitudes. The following day, the husband actually invited her for lunch. Can you believe that? Just only saying that, she confronted her. Religious beliefs and attitudes. That's a very critical point because of our background. We are so, religiously, sorry to say the word, negatively developed negative attitudes towards intimacy, especially when it comes to intimacy issues and sexuality. I remember that case when a husband came and started to complain of his wife. He's asking, probably I told you that example before, when he is asking her to make love, she would say, no, I'm tired. Let us do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. She said, no, tomorrow we'll go to church. We cannot make love on Saturday evening. And then I said, no, okay, Sunday, no problem. Sunday evening, he asked her to make love with him, and she said, Abuna announces that there is a mass tomorrow, liturgy. So I will go and have communion, so I cannot, etc., etc., etc. You know, and I referred the case to the priest. And the priest, you know what he said? He was a good priest. He said, lady, you are not allowed to have communion more than once a week. And that's how the problem was solved. And you know, when I spoke with the lady after that, she said, yes, the following. She was abused, sexually abused when she was a child. So she developed that kind of reaction formation against sex. Sex is bad. Sex is is sinful. Sex is dirty, etc., etc. Why did you get married then? When you get married to a gentleman, he has needs. He expects his needs to be met. One lady mentioned that to me. He said, actually, I hear that frequently, pretty frequently in our culture. One of them would say, you know, Dr. Yousry, he's still acting like a teenager. I said, what do you mean by that? He wants to have sex every day. And they say, what's wrong with that? He's right. You know? And she said, no, this is so carnal. Gzdenia. This is bad. The Bible is asking us to stay pure. And said, so I go with the argument, ask her, what do you think? Is when you make love with your husband, it means that this is impure, this is sinful? I said, I don't know. But it's just too much, etc. You can't win in these arguments. You know, you cannot. But I mean, our church probably would need to help more in educating our congregations about the purity of sexual life and intimacy in marriage. Unfortunately, we confuse so much between sex before marriage, which is not good, it's not right, and sex after marriage. This overlap will bring so much arguments and confusions into our homes. Number 5, impact of media. You know, those people, and Dr. Nabil just mentioned that those people who are addicted to sex through the media, pornography, etc., they cannot function normally with their spouses. And you know, those who are addicted to sex, they need to take care of that. Even after marriage, using their spouses to help them. Like, for example, the husband had been addicted to pornography before getting married. Then, after marriage, he can't stop. He's not fulfilled with his wife. I mean, just he needs more because of the addiction. What should he do? I usually ask the husband in this case, I tell him, every time you feel like you need to turn on the computer and look into pornography, please remember one thing and commit yourself to that thing. Talk to your wife immediately. Tell her exactly what you feel. Tell exactly how, and the wives, you don't judge him. You don't criticize him. You don't admonish him. He's a patient. He's sick. He needs your help. You come out to help him. You let him talk to you about his feelings. And you help him manage with that. And you don't let him resort to porn and stuff like that. You are the helper in this case. You are his helper. Such things help a lot in practice when we deal with the impact of the surreal world, or what we call pornography and sex addiction, stuff like that. Number 6, fulfillment experience in marriage. Our desire improves a lot when we have a healthy sexual life. When we have a healthy sexual life, when we are fighting depression, when we are communicating, when we are doing joint stuff together, that would be very helpful. But number 7 is very important. Be available. Be available. Remember that verse, 1 Corinthians 7:4? The wife has no authority over her body, but the husband. The husband has no authority over his body, but the wife. Be available for each other. So, back to the brewing affair And we have here some ominous signs. You know ominous signs means what? Ominous. يعني حاجة وحشة هتحصل. When I see families living like that or marriage like that, I start to raise the flag. Say, what's next? First ominous sign. The workaholic spouse. He is married to his or her job. Somebody was talking to me in the basement about other addictions. Addiction to TV, addiction. This addiction to his job. I remember one of the old cases years ago, one place in North America, and the wife kept complaining of her husband. He never comes home any evening before 10 o'clock. That's his 10 o'clock from 10 p.m., not 10 a.m. 10 p.m. he comes back home. She's tired, took care of the kids, and he is tired. They are not available for each other. So I asked her, what about Saturday? And she said the same thing. Every Saturday has to spend time in his office. He is addicted. What about Sunday? Sunday we go to church. You know what happened to that? She suffered a lot. And their marriage was good, but still was good from outside, but inside it was cracking. 2 days ago, I heard, fortunately, that their 30-year-old son died of overdose drugs. Was so depressed, and he went to a bar and drank, and then took some other drugs and went to sleep, never woke up. And his funeral is coming next week. Yeah. Look backwards with memory. What happened? What was wrong with that family? It's exactly like that. Another example, distracted spouse, confused priorities, especially for wives, ignoring their husband's needs, distracted because of the kids, because of the friends, because of the anything else. That distraction. And the word that works here is what? Awareness. Don't forget that. Emotionally dry spouse. The spouse who never shows or shows very little feelings. Of course, that affects the marriage. And then the abusive spouse. And that's loss of the boundaries. And the last one is the addicted spouse. He is just obsessed with his or her own habit. Dangerous signs. If you belong to one or the other of this group, please wake up. Two kinds of affairs. We have two kinds of affairs quickly because of the time. We have the internal affairs, and internal affairs are about something happening inside the family. In a family that's functional, we have two axes, parent and child. This is a functional family system. When a parent is not, or a spouse is not receiving due affection from the other, the axis will shift to the children. That's a dysfunctional family. It comes parent to child and child to parent. So instead of, I feel my husband or my wife is absent. It's not there for me. So I start to look for some love inside the family. I start to focus on the children. So two outcomes here. Dysfunctional marriage, what we call, heard a different or similar definition of codependence. Mutual affection in marriage shifts to a child to meet the emotional needs of the spouse. It's called emotional incest, and it may occasionally include some sort of a sexual contact. By the way, I mean, some mothers, they love to have their boys, children, sleep next to them in the same bed. That's wrong. From day one, no child is allowed to sleep in the master bedroom nor in the same bed with a parent. But because she's looking for affection and taking affection from her son, and it's more dangerous when it's the father sleeping with his daughter. It's fine. So the external affair, and that's the very well-known kind of affair, when that happens in many ways, when we hear a wife complaining, we have 10 common complaints from wives. Number one, he is too close to his family. He is nice to his mom, never to me. He doesn't talk to me except if he needs, and you know the rest of the story. He is nice to me only after 9 p.m. He is too busy with his job or hobby. He never praises or compliments me. He doesn't come close unless I ask him. Making love to him is not pleasurable at all. He's selfish. He takes what he needs and then he starts to snore. Okay. He doesn't shower unless I complain. Okay. And number 10, other men tell me I am beautiful. He never does. Come to the gentleman. What? 10 husbands' common stereotypes. Number 1, she's not cheerful, always showing. Now we got to the 111. Okay? She's a complainer all the time. Nagging. And then she doesn't respect me or my manhood. تزعله قوي تقول له انت مش راجل. وحشة قوي الكلمة دي. Respect is one of the priorities, most important priorities for a gentleman, for a husband. She doesn't care to look attractive to me. She doesn't pay attention to her hygiene. She smells. Sorry. She reports our private life daily to her parents. I remember that story. One time, just Abuna sent me a couple, and her complaint that he has been sleeping in a different room now for 6 months. Never comes to sleep with me or touch me. And she was about to فاكرين قلت لكم في الأول, when you don't to talk to your wife, to die, okay? So she was dying, crying. And the guy didn't like to talk about anything. He didn't answer. Kept pushing him, Habibi, please tell me, you are mad at her. Talk about that. And eventually he said that. She reports our private life daily to her parents. Her parents live in the Middle East, in Kuwait or Dubai or somewhere, and she is using the new technology, the magic jack or whatever, just Skype, and she puts her baby to sleep in the morning, and she turns on the Skype and starts to talk about their private life to her parents. And then he finds out that everything, they know everything about their life. Come crazy. She doesn't give me her body whenever I need. These are very important things. She restricts me in how I like to make love to her. And then she's becoming so boring. And the last one is she always puts the children ahead of my needs. Dangerous things. So we come to the end about a healthy marriage. Final tips to keep your marriage healthy. Remember, it's God who has joined you together. Remember, love never fails nor cheats. Free yourselves of past negative experiences. Celebrate your anniversary twice a year instead of once a year. Redo honeymooning every couple months. Communicate love, communicate needs. Do joint activities as often as possible. Frequently review all good memories together. Never rely on dirty sources for sex information. And number 10, seek counseling early before things get worse. So remember that finally that with God, all things are possible. If we have any problem, it can be fixed through our faith in God. Thank you so much. And this is my contact information.